Hi, everybody. We'd like to address the current SAG-AFTRA strike and how it affects our show.
When this strike began, we contacted our SAG-AFTRA representatives, and we were able to proceed, given the green light twice, to review and critique episodes.
SAG-AFTRA has repeatedly instructed us to honor pre-existing contracts, so we will continue to do so.
There are a couple of aspects that we will adjust and or pause to show solidarity with the union. Rest assured that we will continue to monitor the situation.
We stand in solidarity with SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. Thank you. The Enterprise has been rerouted to the Ramatis star system. Picard calls Riker a mother hen, and the House of Hanover all had hemophilia. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 5, Loud as a Whisper, written by Jacqueline Zambrano, directed by Larry Shaw. This was January 7th, 1989. Finally, into 1989. Cirroc, what's up? We did it. We have moved into 1989 television triumphantly. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. We're about to get out of these 80s really soon.
Yeah, so I was looking and it seemed like there was a 3-week hiatus, which feels like it's probably standard, right? When you were doing Deep Space Nine, a 3-week hiatus for the holidays, because the last episode was December 10th. So that's 4 weeks in between, but obviously 1 week they are still working. So it's a 3-week hiatus that they probably had from December 10th to January 1st or whatever like that, which sounds like it was standard, right? You guys would get 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, around the holiday time. The whole business is shut down. So all of the the agencies are shut down. Nobody's casting for anything. So, it's the time that everybody goes away for the holidays.
Here is an important thing about this specific episode that I didn't know until recently. Marnie Mosselman played the character Harmony, who was this lady in Riva's chorus. She is John Delancey's wife.
Oh, what?
What? Let that sink in. I don't think a lot of people realize that John Delancey's wife is an actress, and she was in Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's her.
What? That's crazy. They were already married at the time, or they met on the show?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how long they've been married. But that's just an interesting little tidbit there. And
yeah. Which I felt like her character deserved more lines. Because in the beginning she talked a little bit, and then I think she said she was the harmony and the wisdom and balance. And then she didn't talk that much. So I'm like, I guess this guy doesn't have much harmony and balance in his system.
You know what I thought was weird? And of course, this is different cultures, different aliens. So whatever, they're different. I just thought it was weird how they divvied out the roles, right? Like the one guy is like, I'm the scholar. I know things and I'm super smart and I'm this and that. And the other two were kind of like, he's like, I'm the libido. I'm like, okay. I mean, is that really? And she's like, and I'm the balance between the two. Oh, okay, I guess. But feels like the one guy has most of the work to do, and the other two are just hanging on. And then they tried to give more to libido guy by bringing him in with Troy. And I don't know if you want to talk about that right now, but at the end of my notes, I just put that entire weird romance thing was completely unnecessary and irrelevant. I could tell, I could see if like it's part of the plot, it's necessary for the story, but I thought there was absolutely no reason for them to have a romantic dinner. or sexual. And he was like, dude, sorry, I've got too much to say about this episode.
Yeah.
Let's just when
I
he
see.
started saying like let it flow through you and touch every part of your body, and I'm trying to find exactly what he said, because I was like, dude, calm the down, man. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
When they were in that date scene together in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super awkward in
So awkward.
that scene. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I didn't.
he said it moves. He said, mentioned the sound of the ship, and then he says, it moves throughout my entire body. Sometimes we must allow the surroundings to flow over us, to dwell on each separate part, how it feels, to allow it to fill you. I was like, ew, dude. Gross. I need a shower. You need a cold shower, sonic shower, that is. I don't know, man. Maybe I read too much into it.
No, my notes. I didn't like that either. I said Riva's bedroom must be crowded. So I just felt like I could just imagine you hook up with him and this one guy says, "Who's your daddy?" And another guy's like, "I really love you."
I
And she says, "I'm at peace within the moment." It would be the weirdest thing to happen.
do they do they need to disrobe when he disrobes too? Like if he starts to, take off his jacket, are they like, ooh, showing some shoulder and stuff to
Yeah,
communicate that
to
they're enjoying
communicate.
themselves?
Yeah. No, not only that, but I was thinking also, what are these people's identity? What do they have to say about anything? Like, do they have their own identity? Right? Are they just a vessel for his communication? Like, as opposed to being interpreters who also have their own identity and their own thoughts about things, but they communicate on his behalf. They felt like completely empty vessels who had nothing to say other than what he has to say.
That's exactly it. Um, I don't believe they ever broke character and were themselves for a minute and actually said who they who they actually are, not who they are with respect to Riva the Conqueror here, the dominant one. I mean, that sounds like slavery. Like they don't even have an identity. They don't do anything. They just do whatever this guy tells them. It would have been at least nice for, say, the lady to break character and say, "Oh, my name's Harmony. It looks like they can take care of it from here. Commander Riker, would you join me for a drink, at, 10 Ford, and I could tell you about our planet?" That'd be cool, right? Because then we can learn more about these people, and then it's just a job or a passion rather than their existence. They exist for this guy? It's a little weird.
Yeah. And so when you don't give them an identity and they just become basically Muppets for him, then I don't feel a connection when when they're killed.
I don't know. I'm just picturing you watching this episode. I bet you, I bet, I'm picturing you watching this episode, and you're like about 20 minutes in, you were kind of going like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like, I think I
yeah.
may have enjoyed this episode more than you did. Still not terribly high on it, but for me, there were some aspects that were super smart and super interesting, and others that were just not. Like, for example, just the idea of a deaf person and the three interpreters, or just people that speak for a leader in three. I mean, that's a brilliant idea. It's very smart. It's very cool. It's never been done before, to my knowledge. I really enjoyed that concept. But then why do I have so many issues with this episode?
Mm.
Because I do have.
Yeah. I really despise this episode from start to finish. I
Despise.
yeah,
You've never used
I
that word.
no, I was looking for a nugget somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I just couldn't find it. I'm thinking, what is the point of this? There's got to be a bigger meaning here. Um, I was confused because they said he was deaf, which is a relatively common thing in the world. So to react to it as if you've encountered an alien thing is kind of ridiculous to me. It's like, okay, this has been done before. We figured out how to communicate with deaf
I
people.
think
So
you may have
that
I think you may have missed a couple lines. What it was that they were bothered mostly by his hair. It was they thought at first they thought they were talking to Michael McDonald. Anybody who knows who Michael McDonald is, here's the guy that sings like this, right? That guy, the guy that regulators sampled.
yeah. No, because that was the thing. It was like in the beginning, I was under the impression that he could hear or he had some type of telepathy, right? Because it seemed as if he was communicating with Troy in the beginning
Yes,
without talking. That's what I thought. It felt like they were having this conversation, um, just the two of them through telepathy. So I was confused with that. Um, I was confused with the fact that he would even know a sign language when he uses these people to interpret his thoughts for him. So where would the development of the skill of sign language be even implemented on his planet somewhere? So that to me even didn't
good point.
fly. I was like, well, if sign language is the answer, then why didn't we just, we could have done this a long time ago. The
Right.
universal translator's got to have something for this, and if we can do dermal regeneration, then I'm pretty sure we can fix hearing loss. So
I thought the same. Well, okay,
I
so
was lost in this
here's the
episode.
thing. Well, first of all, I mean they're aliens, so maybe they can't deal with the hearing loss, or maybe they don't want to. I don't know, but it does feel like, look, this is still during the writer's strike, I believe. So I feel like almost this entire season is going to have that caveat. And I noticed there was only one writer. I feel like this may have benefited from having a second pair of eyes looking at it and just kind of saying this doesn't necessarily work. Maybe it was a rush job. I don't really know too much about the ins and outs there. I don't
Yeah.
recognize the name of the writer. Maybe this was her only episode. But you said you wanted one nugget as to why they would do this. Well,
Yeah.
because this actor, the main actor, Riva, as you may have guessed, is actually deaf in real life. And he is one of the most famous and working deaf actors, or was at the time, in Hollywood. And he had been pushing Star Trek to do a deaf episode. So this episode, it seems like this episode was written kind of with him in mind or for him. And that's where they get the enormous applause doing what Star Trek does best, which is uh, bringing in groups that aren't necessarily as prevalent in Hollywood movies and being the first to do it. Bringing in a deaf actor at the end of 1988 and beginning of 1989 to portray a deaf character is very progressive of them and very inclusive of them, and they get the major kudos for that. I just only wish they'd taken one more pass at that script. But the intention is A plus. The execution is maybe less.
Yeah, when I watch these episodes and they're terrible, I often think about what I could adjust in this episode to make it feel better for me. And so, as we're having this conversation, one of the things that I think about is it would have been nice had this Riva character come aboard the ship. And for example, as he's being greeted by the captain and everyone, when he touches them or does some kind of contact with them, they become deaf as well. And then that would have put the crew in a situation in where the captain's deaf, he can't hear, and he's trying to cope with this, and maybe those same aliens that can talk for him also have the ability to talk for whoever becomes deaf, like the captain or whatnot. And then we have an issue. It'd be more interesting for me. It would be a lot more
Interesting. Yeah.
interesting if the characters that we know are put into some kind of peril or some kind of situation that's unusual for them. I would have liked to see maybe Worf become deaf in this episode. It would have been something to play off, something more. And maybe this actor who wanted to have this storyline being portrayed could have been somebody who's walking a new entrance, a new person who's entering into the deaf community and walking them through those steps of trying to cope with your disability and communicate. And there could have been something there. I would have liked to watch him try to reach out to Riker or Worf or somebody, and try to make that kind of communication. Um,
That's a really interesting spin. And then that way, uh, instead of that weird, basically unnecessarily nonsensical B plot of the one scene of Geordi with Pulaski, like I just looking back at that. What was that scene? Is that a B plot? One scene does not make a B plot. You can't do a B plot in just one scene. I mean, it was interesting. It was cool, but there was no reason
yeah,
for it. And so what I'm thinking is, how much better would have been if, say, for example, he makes somebody else deaf and they are trying to work their way through it. And who do they turn to? Geordi. Geordi says, look, I know it's not easy not being able to do things that other people can do. And this is how I cope. This is how, that could have been a B plot. That could have been a great use of Geordi and his disability. This Pulaski thing was very confused. I was like,
it
what
was
is
the
it?
randomest scene out of there. And not only was it random, but it also revisited a subject matter that we had already talked about
And
with
they left
Geordi.
it. They left it on a cliffhanger too. He's like, let me think about it, and then that
Yeah,
was it.
yeah.
Bye.
But this idea came up with Q. Was it Q or when he was given his sight back in that episode, right? And um, uh, Crusher was made. Will was made into an adult, and they
Oh
both
yeah.
rejected. They were both rejected those ideas. They're like, no, I don't want to be altered. I want to be the way I am. And Geordi made a whole great speech about how he wanted to be the way he was. And he didn't want to be artificially given these kinds of abilities. So I just felt like we already visited that topic. I thought LeVar gave a great performance when it comes to dealing with his, visor and what it means to him and how he's attached to, the experience that he's had with it. I felt like it was a very randomly inserted scene into an already randomly occurring episode. So I was lost throughout the whole thing. I mean, I understood it. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. There were some things I did like. I don't know. I thought it was okay overall. Like I
Yeah.
barely remembered this one. I feel like I had seen it before. When the three of them started speaking for him, I was like, oh, I think I remember this. Wait, let me see if I can get that guy's hair. Uh, but one thing I did notice, and I didn't notice this while we were watching it, but when I checked the IMDb and I saw the name Randy Oglesby, and I was like, oh shit, that's this guy. Randy Oglesby, I recognize as the name of an actor who was in Star Trek Enterprise for an entire season. I think he played like 9, 10, 11, 12 episodes as Degra the Zindi. I had no idea that he played this, and I don't really recognize him because this is, 15 years prior, and he doesn't have like the Zindi makeup on. But when you look closely, I'm like, okay, I could see it, but I only recognize the name. So Randy Oglesby, this guy, the scholar, really, really good. One of my favorite characters from Enterprise. Just a very beloved, cool, awesome character. but he definitely had to pay his dues first. He definitely had to come in and be the scholar first and earn it. But I believe that's about how many episodes it was. Yeah, check. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what I did like though is I kind of liked that little graphic. It's so small thing, but there was a graphic inside of Picard's desk where he was trying to figure out the awkward orbit of this planet.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that had to do with anything,
Me neither.
but I did like I like the graphic. So I'm really pulling here. I gotta really.
I was trying to figure out. Okay, so first, Randy Oglesby was in season 1, episode 5 of Enterprise. He played a character named Trinal in Unexpected. I don't remember that, but then he came back in season 3 and played Degra for 10 episodes throughout the entire Xindi arc. So that's 3 characters he's played in Star Trek. But anyway, 4. He also played a character named Kir, Kir, just kind of like the beverage, if you've ever heard of a Kir, which is kind of like a mimosa, but I believe it's with peach schnapps, if I remember correctly, instead of orange juice. That's a Kir. So he played a character named Kir in Star Trek Voyager, season 5, episode 10, Counterpoint. I don't remember that one either. I remember the episode, but I don't remember the character. And whoa, he also played 2 characters in Deep Space Nine. This guy's everywhere. No wonder I recognize the name. In season 1 of Deep Space Nine, episode 11, he played Rokel and Akel in the episode entitled Vortex. And then in season 5 of Deep Space Nine, he played Solarin in The Darkness and the Light. Was that the evil Cardassian that kidnapped Kira? Remember the evil Cardassian that had like the scarred face that kidnapped Kira and she killed him? That was that episode, The Darkness and the Light. I wonder if that would... Wow. I did not realize that. Yeah. Yeah, this guy. I'll show you. He like, or maybe Kira took the shuttlecraft to go kill this guy, and he ends up capturing her.
Oh yeah.
With the scarred up face, but then she ended up killing him or something like that. Wow, I didn't realize this guy's freaking everywhere. He's been in Voyager, Next Generation, 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and 2 characters in 11 episodes of Enterprise. But he made a start as a boring ass scholar. Good job.
Pretty cool. That's one of the things that's is kind of a good thing about Star Trek is you can come back so many different times in so many different ways. We just saw that with Bruce Horak being brought back. So there's all types of ways where characters get revisited and recycled, and the good part is you don't even notice it unless you really notice it.
Yeah. Boy. So that was a shining beacon for me.
Yeah, that was one of your highlights, Oglesby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly kidding. I clearly like this episode more than you did, which is I was pretty medium on it. I thought it had great ideas, but you know what? Let's take our break. Rehydrate, go on a slip and it's really hot here in LA. Go on a slip and slide. And we'll talk. I'll talk more about some highlights that I had and some negatives that I saw. And Cirroc is going to point out some negative, and he's going to struggle to find highlights. He's gonna...
I got a few. I got a couple.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty good. All right, we'll take it. So everybody, stick around. This is going to get wacky and wild. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc frickin' Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Here come the trivioids of the week. Not a ton. The Enterprise has been rerouted to the Ramadas star system. Picard calls Riker a mother hen. Remember, he says, "Cluck, cluck, cluck, number one." It's like, calm down, Picard. That's
actually,
not
actually,
cute.
that was a little over the top right there.
Riva negotiated several treaties between the Klingons and the Federation. Before Riva, there was no Klingon word for peacemaker. The House of Hanover all had hemophilia. The ruling house on Fendos 5 were without limbs. The factions on Soleus 5 are historical enemies. The Leyrons of Malchus 9 are an exception, being that they developed a written language before hand gestures. We learned. What a thing. So here was a highlight for me, but it was also a negative. We're walking along through this episode about a third of the way through, and suddenly my face lights up, the episode lights up, and I'm filled with joy because there is Chief O'Brien. I'm super happy to see him. And like, it brings me immediate joy. I'm like, whoa, Chief O'Brien, awesome. Like, it makes us happy because we know what he becomes, and he's such a beloved character and a cool actor. And then they transport away, and I paused it, and I was like, wait, did he not have any lines? Did they not even say his name? He was a background actor. And then at the end, there he is again, Chief O'Brien. And I'm paying better attention. Still no lines. They don't even say his name. They don't even say "Energize, Chief" or "Thanks, Chief." They just he only said one line, which was the first time Riker they just transport. He just says, the guy says, "We won't need those weapons," and he says, "We'll see." And then they energize away. He doesn't even acknowledge O'Brien. Second time, he says "Energize." They don't say his name, and he has no lines. I'm like, is that some kind of contractual thing where they're like, well, we could get away with paying him only $70 today if we don't say his name and if he doesn't have any lines? Well, that made me a little sad.
I was happy to see him, though. Clearly, he hasn't, he's not as big as a star as he was when I was working with him, because there's no way a star as big as he became would end up having such a small role in this show. So that's kind of the irony there when I watch it. But the other day I did a interview with Larry Nemechek, and he actually brought some emails that were sent between Roddenberry and some of the producers. And one of the things that was described in the email was Gene had gone to a convention somewhere in Maryland, and the person, whoever spoke with him, brought it to his attention that they needed more Latinos on screen. And so he made a note of that and actually forwarded it forward to the rest of his writing team to kind of say, hey, you know what? It was brought to my attention. And since that's a large demographic of people, it makes sense that we would have representation on the show. But included in that email was also a person referencing how much they liked this guy O'Brien in the background.
Wow.
And they wanted to see more of him. And so I'm thinking that his role grew based upon the fans' request to see more of him.
That's amazing. And so now, as when you were telling that story, I was trying to rack my brain and think, did we see more Latinos starting then? I mean, at this point, they've already got the cast locked. Do we know? You said it was around 88 or 89?
89, yeah. Around
so
that
this
time.
Would be, okay, so we're talking about maybe the beginning of, this is starting 89. So now they're already shooting, they're recording. So probably, hopefully by the beginning of season 3, we're going to see a change. We're going to see a little bit more representation there. And that, I hope we remember to check for that in a few months, because that's a really important thing. And that's really cool that Gene Roddenberry, the great bird of the galaxy, is sitting there talking to fans and actually listening in and going, huh, okay, like actually listening, not just being like, okay, thanks. What was your name? Okay, Bill. Great, Bill. Here you go. See ya. Thanks. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get right on that. But he's actually taking
yeah,
that seriously. That's really great to know. And O'Brien, yeah, because O'Brien had his biggest moments in the first episode. Remember in the pilot, he had lines, he had a
yeah.
defined type of character, he had a role. And then after that, they're like, are you available? He's like, hell yeah, I'm available to come back. They're like, all right, your background. Your foreground. But
I know. I'm pretty sure he didn't get paid like a background actor. I'm pretty sure there's a scale above that he
yeah,
must
he'd
have
probably
been
be
on.
like, I think it would be called featured.
Okay. Yeah.
Featured, then it's kind of like a slightly higher rate because, maybe one of the main characters is interacting with him and he does have a name. He is a named character, but yeah, I mean, it's, you know,
Yeah. Little did they know he would go on to become such a big star, and they probably would have
yeah.
used him even more had they known that. But yeah, it's always good for me when I see him because I'm waiting for him to say something because and I'm waiting for his humor because he always has that "I hate this job" humor, and I'm looking for it in these scenes, but he doesn't have it yet. He's not given the opportunity. But did you see Data's walk when he walked up to the captain's chair when in the beginning when Picard gives him the bridge? Data, you have the bridge, and he does like a little
A
saunter up
little
to the
saunter.
chair.
Exactly. That's exactly the word. Yeah. He just goes like, well, now's my moment. There's my captain walk
Yes.
like
No,
that. I'm like, how many
yeah,
steps can you take from your seat to the captain's chair? He sure milked that thing, right?
he did. He milked that walk hard. It was like a Soul
Yeah.
Train dance line. I was like, what's he doing
Wow.
over here? He
Soul
really
Train reference.
he did a George Jefferson walk up to the captain's chair, and I'm like, okay, Data, that's a lot of personality for your robotic self.
Yeah.
I thought that
Yeah.
was funny. I did like the moment when Reva goes and first meets Data, and he puts his hand on his chest, and he's kind of like trying to scan for like a heart or something. He realizes there's nothing there.
Were you doing this when my first thought was, that's not going to work on all the crew, bro. Like when he put his
Yeah.
hand on the chest, like I immediately kind of halfway panicked for him. Like, dude, that's not, you can't just, you're gonna be like, oh, Data. Okay. Sturdy chest. Oh, Riker. Okay. Sturdy chest. Deanna, thank you. I'm an empath. I'll send you my feelings from afar. I
Yeah.
just, but then with Jordy, he goes like this with him, which actually was kind of cool. Uh, it was nice to know because they were both sharing information on their disabilities. But I did kind of get nervous for that first second.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a nice little move how he kind of recognized Data was not human just through that kind of he showed us that through that kind of communication with the hand. Riker said something that I thought was interesting to hear because it's a theme that I've heard in regards to the United States and how it operates as a global superpower. And the thing that he says is, our job is not to police the galaxy. And he makes that assessment, and Picard agrees with it. Like, yes, you're right, number one. And they kind of move forward. But the idea of policing the world, the galaxy, I thought that was interesting that they brought this up in 1989 because I don't know if this was a theme that was being used as much as I've heard it before in regards to the responsibility that the United States has as a superpower to make sure how it intervenes in global affairs and how it asserts its dominance. And one of the things that I've heard in regards to that is our job is not to police, the world or the galaxy. So I do think that was an interesting just idea that was kind of briefly
Mm-hmm.
scribbled into this, but it's something that has had staying power as far as idea wise.
Yeah, the U.S. definitely tries to police the world. I don't know if it was more so or less so in '89. Obviously, there was the USA and there was communist USSR, and they were both, you know, vying for supremacy there.
Yeah.
But so that's was pretty timely at that point in 1989 to talk
Mhm.
about that kind of stuff. They did make a couple other interesting points on that, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I've got it in my notes, but basically they're saying like, "Hey, you know, let's help these guys make peace." The weird thing was these guys had been at war for 15 centuries, 1,500 years.
Mhm.
What? But that was mind blowing. But then he made the good point of if they're contacting us, something has changed. Like clearly they're finally ready for peace for whatever reason. Which, you know, thank goodness, because they said they had just about everybody dead by then. That's why because I was like, I only brought two people on each side, but that's because and they called them emissaries. I was like, watch your mouth. Don't use that. That word's for special people, not for these cavemen. But
Yeah.
I did put in my notes at one point, I miss Tasha Yar. And
Yeah.
it was right after Picard says to Riker, cluck, 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 number one. Which I don't know why, but right after that, I just thought, I was like, I miss Tasha Yar. I miss I miss the all business kind of character, but you know, like I don't know what's going on with Picard in season one. He was all business and he was super tough, and now two or three times in the second season already, he's kind of like breaking character and just being like silly and lighthearted, and it was just kind of weird. You know, I don't know. How do you feel about it? Do you like him being a little bit more lighthearted than before?
Only in certain moments. I only liked it when, for example, at the end when he tells uh, Deanna Troy, "Thank you."
Yeah.
That's him being more likable to me and kind of appreciating his crew and what they offer to the equation. But I don't like it when he's being comical in moments where it doesn't require comedy, like that particular one.
Mhm.
He's actually funnier when he's not trying to be funny, and
Yes.
just it's the same as Data. It's like when he's not trying to be funny, he's funnier. But when he's telling you a joke, it's not as funny to listen to his joke, right?
Mhm.
And I think Picard is the same way. The other thing I liked is when I did like Picard when he was more in character in this moment, but he did go a little bit higher on his emotional scale when he was talking to Riva about, when he says, "You're not alone. We are all in this together now." And he kind of grabs his hand and he's trying to verbalize to him that, we've got your back or something to that effect. He did have a lot more passion in that particular scene, which I like those moments when he chooses to do it. I just don't like the comedy there. Like, you know, that cluck, cluck, cluck. I wrote down in my line, come on, that's, that's corny.
Yeah. But now I do want to reiterate because kind of I'm formulating my thoughts more on Deanna Troy's role because you know we've discussed before about how it seems like with the addition of Guinan, we're almost doubling up on the same type of character, the counselor type character. So I'm hoping to see Deanna Troy be used in a slightly different way, like not just counselor, but also in diplomatic missions and counseling the captain, which is what they were doing in this episode. Great. So we're getting that to build a little separation between the two characters where we can see the differences and the usefulnesses of each. But I feel like they gave her such a huge disservice by forcing in this romantic aspect of it. Why can't she be this great, valuable member of the crew, talk to this guy professionally as an adult, as a counselor, as a diplomat, you know, as a medical professional, as an empath, without having to cram in like, these sexual innuendo, and then the guy kisses her and she's like, we don't, if again, if it paid off at the end, cool, fine, that's one of those episodes. But there was no payoff. It was just inserted in there as if the writers or producers assumed that we as the viewers needed this. We need to see a romantic something. Like, I don't know why I'm so bothered by that, but I'm like, it's so unnecessary. Let her be a professional doing what she does well and showing how her character is necessary to this crew. And instead they blew 5 to 7 minutes on something completely unnecessary and even a disservice. I thought, I don't know, it's just kind of a waste to me.
Yeah, and we're seeing this theme kind of pop itself up in now so far in this first season and a half or whatever of the Next Generation. The sexualization of one of the cast members. It's got to be Tasha Yar. One instance, it was Pulaski in one episode not too long ago in the Sherlock Holmes episode where they made those kinds of references about her.
Well, that's because there's a giant Pulaski fan group, like where people are just crushing over her. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's
no, it's the sign of the chauvinism of the time, in my opinion. It's like it's almost every time they did it. They did it with the Robin Hood character who came on the ship and was flirtatious with everybody that Riker was jealous of.
The Okana guy. Yeah.
Okana. Yeah, the outrageous Okana. So as soon as he came on, he was kind of looking lustfully at Troy, and she was looking lustfully back at him, like as if, there's this huge void and she's waiting for the Prince Charming to come through.
That's the issue there for me. It's like, okay, fine. Some guy comes on and that's his character. That's his type. But why does Troy have to fall for it every time? Why can't she just be like, oh, no thanks, bro. I'm working right now. I'm being nice to you because it's my job. Like, I can understand that, this pirate guy, he goes around. The issue is, like, why does it have to work on her every time? She doesn't need that. Like, come on, she's a better character than that.
Yeah. They're making her out to be like the desperate housewife on on the ship. And I don't like it. It's not, and really, the other thing is for her skill set, which is essentially reading people's minds, emotions, or whatever. She would always know what somebody's agenda is when they do approach her in such a kind of way. Mm-hmm. So she would know who's genuinely in love with her, and who genuinely wants to build a long-term future with her, as opposed to who's looking at her lustfully in a kind of one-night stand type of way. And so she would be able to distinguish that. And she seems to, not be concerned essentially with relationship building, which she could be doing with Riker, which she could be doing with other characters. It seems that they want to make her this person that's, oh, when somebody wants to hook up with somebody, we'll just throw her in the mix. And they did that with Tasha the season before this. And so if somebody's got to be the person that they use as a sexual decoy or pawn in the moving of the story. Right. And I just don't like that. I think it's just,
we don't need it.
It's very simple. No, mm-hmm. it's a sign of the very chauvinistic times where they viewed women in these very simple ways.
And it feels like it feels like a writing crutch. Like it feels like they think that the story needs it. They think that the audience needs this. We don't need it. I mean, I guess I can't really speak to the 1988 audience, but it feels like they think that this has to be in every episode. Otherwise, we're going to lose their attention. They're not going to want to see it. No, I think we'll be fine. We'll enjoy the show for what it is. But the whole thing about the guy in there during their dating, I was just like, how are these guys going to hump? Is he going to be there? Like saying, yes, I'm very much enjoying this.
Yeah,
yes, please do this. I like that. I like it when you do it like that. But that was just, I don't know.
Allow us to disrobe.
But
They
there
both
were
start.
a couple more quick things that I wanted to point out that I really did like. One is the sign language aspect. I don't know enough about ASL, American Sign Language, or any sign language to know if they were actually using that. But regardless, I felt like they must have brought on some kind of sign language linguistic expert, or maybe just this actor gentleman here served as that. What is his name? His name is I can't find it right now. Howie Siago or Howie Seago. But they must have had somebody, because clearly this wasn't just made up. It would look really stupid if they're just like, okay, Data, make something up, just kind of do this. They don't want to like make a mockery of it. So they must have brought on some kind of expert that actually wrote some things out for them. So that was one that I thought was cool. And the other one was something I put in my notes where I said, actually, that's very good. And it was towards the end when Riva said, when they were going to do the sign language and he's going to teach them, he said they'll be learning to communicate with each other. And so that's going to bring them in. He says, while they're learning to communicate with Riva, or no, it's Troy that said, while they're learning to communicate with Riva, they'll be learning to communicate with each other, which is, and Riva said that's the most important aspect of any relationship. I was like, okay, that's actually really good. That was really good. I thought that was beautiful, to be honest.
Yeah, I just couldn't get into it. I actually thought I was looking to see if the signing was consistent. For example, when Riva was talking and then Data would repeat something, I didn't see a consistency in the hand gestures, in my estimation.
Not even when he said that the two happy people that are in love are walking by the blue ocean at sunset. Hey, by the way, it's time for the home run of the day. Cirroc, I know you got a lot of choices to choose from here, but who gets the home run of the day?
I'm going to give the home run to the Solaris aliens that they met on the planet, because they zapped those people away, and I wanted them to kill the whole episode. So that was my treat, watching them get zapped away. Thank you guys.
My home run of the day is to guest star Howie Seago, or Seago, however you pronounce that, who played Riva, who is deaf in real life and had in fact petitioned the producers to create an episode involving deaf people. So, the home run of the day for me goes to the actual actor more so than any, character today.
And with respect to him, his performance, I want to say though, I did like the way he was delivering facial expressions when other people were talking. I thought that was the best of his performance. When he got into the sign stuff, I wasn't as happy about the performance. I actually enjoyed him. It's not easy to just match a facial expression with the words that somebody else is saying as if it's coming from you without using any of your hands or anything. And I like the faces that he was making, for example, the screenshot behind you. So he did do a great performance with respect to that. I will say that.
Well, Cirroc, before we hop over to the free-for-all, did you enjoy this episode?
I'm going to say absolutely not.
Oh.
I did not enjoy this episode. I will not try. I will. Now I understand when you guys say, "Oh, I usually skip over that." This is in skip over country for me.
If this were peanut butter, it would be Skippy. Well, I'll tell you, I enjoyed aspects of it. I enjoyed the attempt. That's about, that's what I can put there. Look, this is something that I do enjoy, and it is for us to say thank you and shout out to our friends, Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom TJ, Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin,
Rukin.
Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil, Akasaka,
Saka.
our pal Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Life from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manisfee, Marcia Classic Schreier, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason the Outrageous Oken. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all up next. I'm scared. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule. It is the free-for-all. Can you believe it? Jason Oken was not smiling the entire time on the break, but as soon as I hit record, he had a big old smile. He's like, oh, I better. Look,
for the camera.
Of course, everybody knows Cirroc Lofton is here. Jason Oken is here, the aforementioned. Malissa Longo is here with bones behind her.
Yeah.
Faith Howell is, of course, on the Enterprise D bridge. We've got Mai live in Tokyo. Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, is laying low. We go. That's
an Introverted Republic.
That's
shirt.
right. Very good.
Yeah, so awesome.
You can get that shirt and Melissa's shirt at theintrovertedrepublic.com, everybody. Eve England is wearing a gigantic font Star Trek shirt.
It's the Star Wars font.
Wars, though.
It's Star Wars font, though. Yeah, I was thinking Star Wars font.
You know, our friend
got us confused over here.
Our friend Darth Shuey has the reverse. He has not the reverse, but that same thing. But it's like, it looks like Star Wars. But yeah, if you look more closely, it's Star Trek, kind of like that, but a little smaller. Very cool shirt to fool the masses. Carrie Schwent is also here. Looks like the Enterprise on her shirt. And Allison Leach Hyde. Oh, that's right. Another Star Trek shirt. Wow, lots of Star Trek represented, surprisingly.
Go to the Academy, too.
Oh, cool. All right, everybody. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
4.9.
Wow.
Below the belt.
The belt is a 5.
Wow.
Oh, is that the bottom?
Exactly.
Wow. So Cirroc Lofton believes that IMDb voters gave it a 4.9. What do you guys think? Do you have any guesses?
Well, that's even lower than what I said. I thought it was 5.3.
5.3.
It's probably high to mid fives, maybe low sixes, not higher than that. But yeah.
Faith thinks you guys are all way off.
It's fun.
What? Well, the answer, of course, is a 6.5, everybody. 6.5.
Wow.
It's because of that scene behind Melissa that prompted it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That was like back to conspiracy days. Well, Malissa Longo, can you get us started on the right track and tell everybody what you thought of this episode?
I will try. I'm learning that I have not seen season 2, I don't think, because this is the first time I've seen this episode. And I don't think it's as terrible as a lot of people are alluding to. There is granted, there is some clunkiness to the episode, and that's but there are some other aspects that I really appreciated about the episode besides the wonderful, gruesome, gory bones. I love me some gore, except for some we won't talk about that. But no, but I appreciate what they were trying to do in terms of exploring how different people communicate in different ways with each other. Some people have certain strengths and in the way they communicate. And having a deaf person on and kind of rallying for this episode is kind of an important step. And I think a lot of the naysaying comes with the fact that it's difficult to communicate with people who talk differently than you. So everything is going to slow down, and everything is going to take a little bit longer to get cohesion. So, and I think that came across very well in this episode. We often don't have the patience to learn language that is different than ours, and that includes American Sign Language, which the guy was using in this episode. So I was taking it from that perspective. We were learning a new language with the Star Trek crew. And I liked that. And I also got that the parallels of the chorus representing the Greek choruses from way back when, from like Medea and Oedipus Rex and all of that stuff, and it being the narrators, as you will, if you will, of the story. So, and I thought that was kind of an interesting addition to that as well. So I didn't hate the episode. I thought it was interesting. It was, yeah.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Melissa. First time Oedipus Rex has been mentioned in this show, I believe. Faith Howell, what's up? She's wearing her Deep Space Nine captain shirt. What do you think of this episode?
So I already said I really like it. I don't remember liking it that much as a child. So definitely I was watching it with new eyes this time. And definitely I was coming more from a perspective of having my own children, one of or both of which are predominantly nonverbal, and one who has hearing aids and does some signing. And so having that representation was kind of cool. I don't know that it was done as well as maybe it would be today. I was kind of looking to see if I recognize, I'm very far from fluent in any kind of sign, but I was looking to see if I recognized any of the signs, and they looked believable enough, but I don't think it was real sign language at all. Even some of the signs he did were clearly like, it was more so we, the audience, would understand more than a true sign, I'm pretty sure. But there were, I also really liked the parallels with Geordi and his visor, and sort of the commentary on just because it's not the way everyone else is, do we need to fix it? And especially that when they quantified 20% less vision for him. And yes, we saw a few episodes ago that his vision is crazy and awesome and amazing. And so, 20% less than that might still be better than regular humans, but is it worth that loss? And then if they regenerated his vision and he could see just like anyone, he would lose all of that extra completely. And so it would actually be a deficit for him based on what he has now, other than maybe not having the headaches that he's struggling with. So I like that they put that in there, and I like that he's choosing to keep the visor, because I know in the deaf community, a lot of people don't want to use the cochlear implants and don't want to use hearing aids because it is an effort that you have to expend to listen and process that information. So I thought that was really interesting representation there.
Wow, very nice perspective. Thank you, Faith. Answered a few of our questions that we had during our review, where Cirroc was just beaming about this episode. Speaking of which, so is the outrageous Jason Oken. Jason, how did you feel about this episode? You love the directing?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, all things being equal, they did try to convey try to have a theme, but overall, I frankly found the episode boring. It was slow, it was prodding. And when it comes to directing, one thing that directing can do is make something that perhaps is not so exciting on the page look a little bit more exciting on the screen. And I was really hopeful when the episode opened with some rack focusing that'd be something interesting going on. And that was perhaps the most interesting stuff done the entire episode. The camera was stationary. It just frankly looks static. The script, the story is static. Everything is static and kind of boring. So the execution wasn't exactly the best. I mean, one thing I would say, and I've noticed this kind of looking at second season episodes, is that interesting enough, looking at the slightly earlier version of the script, there's always been an improvement, believe it or not. No matter how bad this looks, the script was even worse. One of the things that Faith talked about is the connection with LaForge's visor, and in the earlier version of the script, that connection was a hell of a lot stronger. And it actually made a little bit more sense because Riva was actually communicating through a device he wore on his head that malfunctioned on the planet. There were no bones, there was no gore. The device just malfunctioned. So that was sort of the premise there. And, that was the connection between Geordi's visor using technology to cure a handicap. And there was a scene at the end of the episode with Geordi and kind of talking again about the fact that what it would involve to kind of see as a regular human being. So that kind of went by the wayside with the story. That's why it looks a little disjointed, because it was a remnant of the original script. It made a lot more sense in that context. And one thing I'd mentioned previously in some of these episodes, what is this really about? Is it about any of our characters? And I'm having a hard time figuring out if it is about anybody here. It's certainly about the guest star. And typically, the best episodes are not about the guest star. Mm-hmm. They could be certainly a prominent sort of guest star presence, but it's always involving somebody else. I mean, obviously, the best Q episodes are typically Q and Picard episodes. You can have, obviously, when we had, Elementary Dear Data, it's a Data episode. And this is more akin to the Outrageous Icona. It's about a guest star and not about any of our characters. I mean, there's a little bit for Troy here, and I think her attraction to ambassadors and negotiators was done a little bit better in The Price. Not the greatest episode on the planet, and it gave rise to one of the worst Voyager episodes and perhaps one of the worst episodes of Star Trek, and set the Ferengi back to the good old days. But this wasn't particularly, great. There are some other issues to pick here, and I'll just mention one. I mean, these are supposedly aliens. I guess he's so fluent in English he can read lips.
Yeah.
What language is he reading?
Good point.
And there were some other things, and I'll talk about them later. But overall, I just found this to be a little bit slow and boring, and frankly, I started dozing off this time around.
Did you watch it at night?
Not that late, but it was just
you and Cirroc both. I bet you Cirroc was battling too. Look, somebody that's never dozed off. Mai is live in Tokyo. What's up, Mai? What did you think of this episode?
I thought the homage to Barry Gibb with the hairstyle was right on the money. That was perfect. I thought the episode was like a game of tridimensional chess based on an ancient proverb by this gentleman, Lao Tzu. It says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And on the first level, we have Riva's chorus giving him the ability to speak, right? And the second level, we've got Riva giving two opposing parties the ability to communicate with each other. And then on the third level, we've got Riva learning to teach communication at the end using the sign language that he once learned but set aside in favor of the chorus. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. I think Riva's kind of like a metaphor for a young adult becoming a wiser adult, or maybe a parent as she learns that she can do it herself and creatively find an alternative. I also found the chorus to be a bit of a crutch. And the message there seems to be when you rely on others to say what needs to be said, you're communicating less well than if you do it yourself, albeit perhaps less eloquently. And maybe a message to the shy or the introverted: there is hope if you can somehow see it. But I think that the reference to give a man a fish was definitely what I took away from this entire episode.
Very good point. Thank you very much, Mai. Good stuff there. Lao Tzu, The Art of War, if I remember correctly.
Different one. That was similar one. That was Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu. Thank you. Oh, Lao Tzu. Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Father of
remember now. Very good. Thank you. Look, Chris McGee is here, and he's going to quote his favorite philosopher too.
Yeah, I think that's probably Lao Tzu. I'll go with that, sure. I'm not going to quote anything because I only know the one that Maya said because she just said it. So, this episode, I agree with Jason. Yeah, it's a very slow, very quiet episode. Even at the end of the teaser, before the break, there's nothing, no drama or anything. It's just a slow pan across an empty room, and that just seemed really an interesting decision. Let's put it that way by the DP. And I found it interesting. Okay, let me ask a question here. You probably have already discussed this in the previous segments. How many of us here, a show of hands, know ASL, American Sign Language? Anyone? Yes. A little bit? Okay. I unfortunately don't know any. I just recently learned, like a few years ago, that sign language is more than just the hand gestures. There's also a lot of the emotional facial expressions that go into conveying your meaning. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's part of another reason why Data wouldn't be the best choice to be Riva's interpreter in this episode, even though he does kind of emote a good bit when he's doing a little bit of sign language in front of Riva. I'm wondering, did Brent Spiner learn ASL, or was he just given a few motions to do in that one scene and that was it? Does anyone know the answer to that, perhaps?
In the original script, he wasn't supposed to be signing at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Riva's supposed to read lips. He's not supposed to be signing at all, and he does in the episode, but not in the script.
Well, that's because the actor was deaf, and he wanted to use a American Sign Language.
I find it interesting that Klingons have no such sign language, being such a very militaristic kind of society for the most part, that they wouldn't have anything like that. As far as, Faith brought up the Geordi's visor scene. That was, I find it interesting that it kind of, they would bring that up. LeVar Burton had wanted that scene in there so that in the future, possibly they might be able to continue that thread and he could get rid of his glasses and start actually using his own expressive eyes. But unfortunately that was dropped, and this is the last we hear of it, at least for a long time. My favorite part was Troy, of course. Most people probably was when Troy convinced Riva, using his own words, to convince him to do the right thing. Why can't you turn your disadvantage into an advantage? It was almost Guinan-like in its elegant simplicity. As far as the memorable quote, besides the "why can't you turn your disadvantage into an advantage," it's kind of a silly quote, but what can I say? It's the one that stuck with me, and that is, "Oh, cluck, 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 number one."
Yes.
That's cute.
Very good. I was noticing Mai and Chris combined have the Halloween colors on their nails, right? Mai's got orange and Chris is purple.
Observant.
Nice. This is the seventh rule colors.
Even better. You're right. Very good. That's what I meant. I'm going to change that in the edit. The seventh rule colors. Look, Eve England out in Wales just admitted to everybody that she thought it was cute when Picard said, "Oh, cluck, 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 number one."
That did make me chuckle, and I just thought we need more of that from Picard, because he actually seemed like a real human being. But yeah, I totally agree with Melissa, what you said about the idea. I thought the idea, so when it started, I thought this sounds really cool. So when they were doing all that exposition at the start, I thought that was really cool. And I loved the Greek influence of that. And even, the set when they're in that room, when they first meet him, and the chorus, and they've got that beautiful column with the stained glass. And I thought that was brilliant. So it started off quite well for me. I was sort of looking forward to what they were going to do with that. But I agree with the other points that I don't think the execution quite worked. I think it would have been a great sort of piece on the page in a novel. And I think probably now with TV as it is now, you'd probably have something a bit more interesting in the way that they presented it. It's like, it just felt a bit lost and a bit disjointed. But again, and I think what really, really spoilt it for me was how they just made him a bit creepy. And I think it could have just not had that love interest with Troy. I think that just detracted from the whole thing. It'd been much better if they'd had a communication and a connection that wasn't sort of lustful and, you know, pervy that sort of early season of TNG seems to like doing. So I think that kind of took me out of it a little bit. I think they could have just taken all of that out and it would have improved it significantly. But my favorite aspect of this was actually the scenes with Pulaski. And I just thought, even though she was only in it a tiny amount, I thought the way that she interacted with both Geordi and Data, I think to me sort of showed some development from her perspective. And I really got the sense that she deeply cared for them. That sort of cheeky smirk that she gave to Data when, you know, he was talking about and doing all those signs. And she was clearly I just got the sense that she was really proud of how far he's come along. So I really like that sort of insight there. And then just one final point with Data. Did anybody notice how when he sat in the captain's chair at the very start, how he had that sort of, oh, this is amazing, I'm the captain now on his face. And it was so subtle. And I just thought that was really cute. And it's just showing a bit more of Data's sort of personality coming through, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Cirroc definitely picked up on that as well during our review here. Look, everybody, it's Carrie time. Carrie Schwent is here. What's up, Carrie? What did you think about this episode?
I love this episode. It's actually one of my favorites, I think, of the entire series, really.
Wow.
I can see why some people like it, but I personally enjoy it. The Greek chorus is very cool. Interesting note about the woman in the Greek chorus, that is John Delancey's wife.
Yeah.
And seeing their son Keegan in a later episode of Voyager, I can see Keegan in he looks like his mom. I could see Keegan in her face. So I loved the Greek chorus was very, very cool. I've got a couple of production whoopsies that I'll save for things left unsaid that kind of made me chuckle. Data's demonstration after he's learned his sign language just had me absolutely rolling. And it very much reminded me of a scene in the Big Bang Theory where Sheldon is describing the rules for rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Almost the same sort of very similar motions in the same way he said it was almost the same rhythm that Data had. And if anybody hasn't seen that, look up that clip on YouTube. The rules are very, very interesting the way he adds the lizard and Spock to rock, paper, scissors. But I love the deaf actor, and I find ASL very beautiful, just in the movements. It's absolutely fascinating to me that the lyrical, the movements, and you can tell when they're getting mad because the gestures get more emphatic. There's a fantastic TV show called Switched at Birth that is very much centered around deaf culture, and I highly recommend it. And I didn't find Reva that pervy at all. I thought the actor had fantastic chemistry. I really did kind of like him and Troy together. She was a little bit nervous at first, but I kind of liked them, and I really wanted to take a pliers or take a tweezers to that guy's eyebrows. They were a little too thick for me. But in taking a slight page from Reva and Troy in that scene, I have enlisted my good friend Mai here with help with my limerick for the week. I don't know sign language very well. It would probably take me a year to come up with the signs for the limerick I came up with, but I've got them on note cards, and I'm going to hold it up, and as my interpreter will read them for me. Here we go. Let's see if okay.
Communication is more than just words. Your face and your body show your concerns. Feelings can often be traced in the lines of your face. This way, about each other, we learn.
Very good.
Very nice.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Excellent.
well done.
Creative.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike, for the assist.
All right, Allison, the pressure's on. Allison Leach-Hyde is next. What are your thoughts on today's episode?
It is not one of my favorites. I've probably skipped it fairly frequently in rewatches, but it was also on all the time when I was a kid. Like 5 times a week. Like it felt like every day that episode was on. So I saw it a lot when I was younger. We get to see O'Brien. Sadly, he only does stuff in ADR, and he actually doesn't say it on screen. So that was sad, but that was my first joy. I'm like, yeah, O'Brien. And then I really like the scene where Riva is meeting everyone on the bridge and placing his hand over their heart to get a feel for their vibrations, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I love the bit where he doesn't know what to do with Data. He's like, where do I go? Where do I go? Calls him me because, well, he is. And just how proud Data is, that his thank you is just sweet. And I really liked that. And of course, I love the scene where Geordi is talking about, how his visor is similar to his chorus and how he's happy with who he is. I think that's a wonderful thing for all of us to think about. Like, I like me. I'm not perfect, but I like me. So love that bit. And that Troy got to be a psychologist and a counselor. Like, yeah, she did her job. Mm-hmm. Yes, she was also attracted to the person, but she actually did her job and didn't let that get in her way. So those are my favorite bits. Yeah, it's clunky. The actor Howie Sisko, who played Riva, is the reason we have the ending we have now that was changed from the script. Mm-hmm. So I don't quite know exactly how. I think he didn't want the mechanical failure, I guess, was what it was. I couldn't quite understand that from the little blurb in Memory Alpha, but I like that because he is a deaf actor, that they used his wants for his character in this situation. Because it was not something they dealt with every day. I mean, I don't think any of the writers on this show were deaf. So it was nice they took his wants into consideration.
Wow, great stuff. Thanks very much, Allison. All right, Cirroc Lofton, any final thoughts on your part about this episode?
Yeah, I found out that Riva's last name is McIntyre.
I knew, man, before we even started recording, I was like, if Cirroc doesn't say a McIntyre joke, I'm going to be very sad.
Wow.
There it is.
Those are Reddit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I want my little addition to this is this episode came out on January 7th, 1989. And at around the same time in January of 1989, Avery Brooks was doing a show called A Man Called Hawk.
Yeah.
And so A Man Called Hawk had its debut the same year and the same month as this second season episode of The Next Generation. And in his third episode of his show, A Man Called Hawk, there was an episode called Hear No Evil. And that episode focuses on Avery as Hawk involved. He says he becomes emotionally involved in a case of 2 hearing impaired Gallaudet college students that he's hired to protect after witnessing a murder. So he is at the college campus of this place called Gallaudet College. And I wanted to give a little bit of history about Gallaudet University. It's a private, federally chartered research university in Washington, D.C. for the education of the deaf and hard of hearing. It was founded in 1864 as a grammar school for both deaf and blind children. It was the first school for the advanced education of the deaf and hard of hearing in the world, and remains the only higher education institution in which all programs and services are specifically designed to accommodate deaf and hard of hearing students. And it was founded by Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, a notable figure in the advancement of deaf education. So Avery did an episode exactly dealing with deaf and hard of hearing students, exactly mirroring this same kind of issue that this actor wanted to bring to the forefront of television. So I do think it's interesting how in the universe, when ideas kind of come and flourish in similar times, right? It's like so a product will never exist, throughout history, but then two people invented it. They both invent the light bulb within a month of each other or something. And here in this particular case, you've got an issue like, dealing with being deaf or hard of hearing. And here in this month, or in this beginning of 1989, here comes the flood of the market dealing specifically with this kind of issue in a totally different way. In Avery's case, he actually talked about dealing with learning sign language himself to be able to communicate in this episode. So I know that he actually learned sign language for that particular episode. I don't know what Brent Spiner's background is for this particular episode, how much he had to learn. But I think it's interesting that this subject matter begins to rise its head at the almost exact same time on two different shows. And the rest I'll leave for things left unsaid.
Very cool. Thank you very much, everybody. We're all so much smarter now. We appreciate you all. Faith Howell, Eve England, Chris McGee, My Live in Tokyo, the outrageous Jason Oken, Allison Leach Hyde, and Carrie Schwent. Everybody at home, let us know your thoughts on this episode in the comments section below. There's quite a divergence here. Some people hated it. Somebody even used the word despise. I'm not going to say who, but Carrie said it's one of her favorite episodes in the history of Star Trek ever. Where does it fall in that scale for you, everybody? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, always remember the seventh rule.